Welcome to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio, coming to you from the fiery oven of western Montana, eating smoke all day long and having a great time. We got an excellent guest here today. This is somebody that I've been friends with on Facebook for quite a while now. Been following what they've been doing and really enjoy all the stuff that they're putting out, and they have a lot of knowledge about Bigfoot, so I thought it would be interesting to have this person on the show to talk about it, and specifically about the MGs and Type 3s. So you guys out there that are interested in the enormous guys and face eaters, we got somebody on here that knows something about them that's going to tell us a little bit about them, and we got some other subjects we want to talk about too. So without further blabber from me, let me introduce my awesome guest this week, Khat Hansen. Welcome aboard, Khat.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Khat. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time now. There's like so many subjects that I could cover with you, and we were just talking about one, and maybe we should sort of go back into that a little bit here for a while, about how with Dave Pt.1 running around turning out his Missing 411 books and having a heyday with that and getting everybody generally worked up into a high state of awareness, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But he never really comes right out and says what his theory is on what he thinks is making these people disappear, and sort of kind of makes it look like he might think it has something to do with Bigfoot. And, well, it might. But I'm not entirely convinced of that, especially that Type 1 Bigfoots would be doing this sort of thing on any kind of a regular basis. So I thought I'd let Khat give us her 2 cents worth on what she thinks about that.
Cool. Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm going to say that I suck at your guys' classifications because I don't follow those. So I just refer to them as I was taught. So the Class 1s, I know the Type 1s that you and I were talking about, those are just my big guys, what I call stay-em-ma.
Your stay-em-mas, yeah. And this is, for the people out there that are listening, we're talking about basic Type 1 Sasquatch, Patty-type Bigfoot.
Right. And no, that's just I'm going to go even further than that because that's an hell no. Okay, they don't eat people per se. I mean, sure, you're going to find maybe one, like a Hannibal Lecter in that group, but that's just your odds. Okay, they're not going to go out and attack. Your average stay-em-ma is not going to go out and attack a human being and kidnap them and eat them and do the things that they're being suspected of doing. These horrible creatures that it's being painted to be. It's just not it, okay? Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I always say that they look like us, but their emotions are not our emotions. They're not us, okay? So them going out and shopping actively for humans to snatch off a trail, off the Boy Scout trail or whatever. No, I don't believe that. I don't accept that at all, because I have interacted with quite a few in my group, and no, they're just not that way. Over my lifetime, no, I don't see that. What I do see is that very specific group typing would hunt humans and does hunt humans. And I've spoken out about them a bunch of different times. I call them the face eaters. That's what we always called them. And for good reason, because they prefer heads. They really do, for some reason. That's the first thing that will get eaten. Usually eyeballs, I've found. But they go for the soft part of the head. They go for the eyes, they go for the tongue, they go for the nose, things like that. Ears pull off very easily. So I know I'm being morbid here, but I'm very categoric about what I'm saying.
Well, let me add to the morbidity here for a second. I sort of wondered if, I know that on occasion when Bigfoot are hunting deer, they may snap their legs and then just haul them back with them to keep them alive longer until they actually eat them.
Exactly.
If it bit off the lower part of the face, you would still remain alive, but you would be incapable of making sound.
Exactly. And that is what they're known for. These guys, people want to associate them with Bigfoot, okay? And I'll apologize to people out there, because I throw the terminology around because it's just comfortable for me. You can call them Sasquatch, you can call them Stay-in-Law, you can call them Bigfoot. I don't really care. My big thing with them is face eaters are face eaters, and that's what they are. They're look like a Bigfoot, kind of, sort of. In the humanoid body type, they have that. And other than that, though, they're bigger, they're heavier, they've got that muzzle. I always compare it to the Beast of Seven Shoots. If you see that,
these are the ones. Just for the fans out there that listen to this regularly, we're talking about the Type 3 Bigfoot here, the baboon face type ones.
Yeah.
That are notoriously aggressive. Thank God they're not that common. But
no.
Definitely bad news, and you don't want to run into one. It won't shake your hand. It won't sing Kumbaya with you.
Oh my God, no.
Not friendly.
No.
Not friendly.
No, not at all. And people need to be aware that these things, seriously, these things come after humans and stalk them. They will actually come down out of the mountain and stalk a human being for this, and that's just the way that they are. They choose to eat people, and I'm not sure if that is because people are easy prey, because let's face it, unless you are Grizzly Adams and you live in the woods 24/7, 365, you are out of your element. If you period. If you go to the woods maybe 2 times a year, you're still out of your element. Okay?
Right.
But they are in their element. So to parade, for instance, a Boy Scout troop through a hunger, and I call it a hunger zone, okay? These guys don't farm. They don't cultivate. They don't do anything. They strictly are meat eaters, period. They don't eat grass. They don't eat trees. They don't do anything. They're not omnivores. They are carnivores. And when you see these guys, if you, God forbid, you do see one, you're going to notice that these guys have enormous fangs. And I'm talking canines like, again, say I can't remember what they're called, a dryas baboon, a hamadryas. That's the snout on them. That's what I always refer to them as. They've got that big canine like a baboon has, and it's there. It's very prominent. And
I was always kind of curious of what you'd think about this. Have you seen the fossil remains in the mock-up for Dinopithecus? And do you think that could be a relative? Because, man, it really looks similar. Giant prehistoric baboon.
Yes, it does. And I have said that for a long time. I'm an archaeologist by trade. And that, to me, struck when the first time I saw that, I just sat there thinking about the face eater that I had seen, and I was like, oh my God, that's where it comes from,
Wow.
And you and I were talking about how we, here on Earth, we have different branches of different species. And I almost have to wonder if at some point, maybe, I'm not an expert, I can't say on that, but maybe they branched off, maybe the big hairy furry guys, the Stay-in-Law that I know were branched off from these guys because they were less aggressive, less, into killing and it being more warlike, whereas these guys are,
don't necessarily have to be even, any more related than we are to baboons, too, because look at all the fossil evidence they found of other relic hominids on Earth.
Right.
They're all human-looking, sort of. They're bipedal. Their skeletons look kind of similar to ours, but they're not humans.
Right. So there again, they look like us, but they're not us. Isn't that funny how that plays out? And face eaters are very much that way. And I find it, I haven't read but one of Paulides' books. And in it, I noticed that there were some things that I had already spoken to him about and explained to him. First of all, Stay-in-Law do not fold clothes. Okay, they don't.
Yeah, I can't picture Bigfoot doing that.
It doesn't have those little fingers for it. Okay, sorry, doesn't work like that. But I'm sorry, it doesn't work. Okay?
No, I know what you're talking about. They got fingers that are like, as thick as a Twinkie.
Yeah.
It can be pretty hard to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a photo of one of their hands, where it's wrapped around the tree looking at me. I mean, his fingers are just enormous, okay? So no, he doesn't have the fine motor skills like that. But there are those among them that do have the fine motor skills like that, and those are the females, okay? So, because they are as big as the males. So their whole stature is much more petite. And
if you could call Patty petite, but I guess by comparison she is.
She is, but believe me, females compared to these guys, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I totally know what you're saying.
And I have a horror story on that as a child because I'm sure there's people out there that know who I am, and I did grow up with my group. And one of the things that the males used to do to me that I absolutely hated as a child was when I was being annoying, they would literally grab me by my head, put their hand on top of my head, and turn me around, pick me up, turn me around, and push me away from them. So, I can say they do not have fine motor skill. The males do not, because his hand would come all the way over the top of my head, fingers down by my nose, picking me up, go away. You're bugging us. So.
No, it's a good thing that you're light and you had really strong neck muscles. That's about all I can say about that one. Oh, my God.
That's
no
fun.
thanks.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I do know. But
get back to the subject of the Type 3s. I hate to interrupt you, but I wanted you to bring this up. I was listening to you talking about Type 3s on another person's show, and you mentioned that you had actually seen one. You had been out in the mountains and saw one. And when you mentioned where it was, my heart sank, and I went, oh, God, now I got to deal with those damn things around here. Because you saw it in the Bridger Mountains out here in Montana. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, Bridger, Montana. I used to live in Montana, and so I would go there and visit friends and go back during the times, to see people. And
hey, expatriate Montanan, come back.
Yeah, I know, huh? My favorite thing about Montana, no speed limit, so Leadfoot cat goes zooming.
Yeah, I think there's no drink limit here either, judging by the people that are driving on the roads. They're pretty bad. It's dangerous.
Yes.
Seriously, they're way overconfident.
Yeah, they are, but I think most Montanans are, and that's okay. You know, that's something that I do appreciate about Montana. They've got an attitude, and I love it.
Yeah,
We
live out here on the edge of civilization, and we're kind of happy with it. So you got to have an attitude like that, right?
Exactly, you know. So, no, I was up there. I was visiting a friend, and he had one of those ridiculous little rescue shovels. I mean, it looks like a Tonka toy, for goodness sake, you know, and we were up there wheeling around, and he got his what was his truck? I can't think of what. It's either, I think it's a Bronco. He got his Bronco stuck. Anyway, I'm sitting here, well, we got to dig it out of the snow. It's cold. And he's like, oh, I got a shovel. And he pulls this thing out. I'm just sitting here looking and going, oh, my God, we're going to be here till Ice Age, next Ice Age. You know, I got to.
Might as well just wait for the spring thaw at this point.
So I left. I went wandering, you know. I was like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm here on vacation. I'm not doing physical labor, okay?
Yeah.
So
with a tiny sand shovel from the beach, let them deal with it.
That's it. You know, I'm not doing it. So I'm up there wandering, and I know better because, like I said, I lived in Montana. I know what's up there, you know, and I know it's cold, so the bears aren't awake. I'm fine. You know, I'm cool. But I'm wandering around, and you know how when you're out in the wilderness, I mean, I don't know about other people, but for me, I have really good survival instincts, and I can tell when something's watching me, and I can even tell about how close it is, you know?
Yeah.
And
I got that from hunting and all the years that I spent in woods that were infested with too many things, and I was pretty paranoid about it. And I actually got to the point where I could not only tell if something was watching me, I could tell if it was watching me thinking I was going to be a potential meal or not, because it's different. You
do know. Thank you. Yes. So I'm out there, and I knew when I was walking, you know, because I walk very quietly, and that's something that drives everybody crazy who knows me, because it's just something my father instilled in me. You know, you walk quiet. And when I'm out there, when I was out there walking, I knew there was something there. You know, I could feel my space had been invaded. You know, not per se as in close to me, but I was just aware that there was something else there. And
were you getting the alarm feeling without the it's actually watching me feeling?
Right. Yeah. You know, there's something here. There's another predator here.
Right.
There's a big there's something here. And which kind of threw me because I knew, like I said, the bears are asleep. It's that cold.
Yeah, it's winter. It's winter. They should be sleeping. Which not always is the case, by the way. I got a picture of a gigantic grizzly in somebody's backyard. They got it snapped on their security cam. It was wandering around in their yard. In the second half of January by Glacier Park.
Oh, my God. You're
kidding.
So,
no, I'm not kidding. They do wake up during the winter and go prowl around occasionally. So just because it's winter is no guarantee you're absolutely safe from bears.
Yeah, because I had never seen one before in the winter when that far in, you know, and so.
Yeah. But I agree with what you're saying. In general, during the winter, bears not very high on the priority list of things to worry about. Now, worry about mountain lions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, mountain lions you could worry about, but you know what? I have found that when they're watching me, I can tell the difference between them. I can tell the difference between a wolf. You know, I can tell what's watching me, usually that way. And this I got the sense of was bigger, dangerous. And
Jesus.
When I come around this rock, you know, the bridgers there are really unique in that they have, you can be out walking in the middle of the forest and you'll find a big old piece of granite boulder, you know, and it freaks me out when I do that, you know, because I'm from Oregon and I expect my forest to be flat, you know, with mossy trees and things like that, you know. And so it's kind of unique to be walking out in these woods and to come around a boulder. You know, you've got a boulder the size of a small room flopped there, you know, and you got to walk around it. And I did just that, and I just stopped short dead because right there in front of me, he was there. He was on the other side of that. And
oh, God.
He had his back to me, and so I had time to observe him. You know, the wind was blowing from him towards me.
Okay,
so
he didn't smell
me. Yeah. He didn't smell me. I had perfect observatory time, and I was standing there around the edge of this boulder, peeking my head out to watch him. He was enormous, and these guys do wear skins. You know, that's something that you and I were talking about a little bit ago. Different species, different branches of different classifications, of these guys use tools, and face eaters are one of them. They do skins, and they're not. I don't want people thinking, oh, skins like caveman wears or someone on the walkway out in New York is wearing. No, they stink. They literally
they're not tanned, they're not flanged, they're like
They've ripped the skin off of the animal. That's exactly what they've done. So they wear them, for, I would guess, to keep warm. It makes sense to me. I mean, they're up there on top of the mountain where it's 30, 40 below, yeah.
Even with a lot of hair on your body, you're still going to want some protection.
So I was watching him, and he had, and they're not sewn together skins. They're not. Literally, from what I gathered just looking at this thing, someone had chewed or pounded a hole for the arm to go through. So there was that, but it wasn't like a coat. It was only one arm through it, and then the skin was hanging down.
Can you tell what kind of animal he had skinned to make that?
Yeah,
Can you tell what it was from?
I could tell. Real simple. It was a bear.
Okay.
It was a bear. And it still didn't fit him. I want that made abundantly clear. It didn't fit him. Okay, only one arm is shoved through it. So it's hanging down. I mean, they don't have the skill to wrap it around themselves per se, I don't believe. But they do have the ability to make the skin, I guess, to be functional in some form. I was watching him, and he was very meticulously looking through the rocks around the area, and he was, I want to say, from watching him, I did recognize what he was doing in my group. They like to look for small animals. They'll pull up a rock and see if there's a mouse underneath it or a nest or something like that. And I had the sense that's what he was doing. He was hunting. It was obvious he was looking for something. And at some point, I think the wind shifted, or maybe he caught on that he was being watched, because he stopped and turned around and looked in my direction. But there again, I was up against that boulder and plastered to the side of it, where he couldn't see. He would have to walk around a little bit to see me. And then he went back to what he was doing. These guys are big. Okay, I want people to understand. People think Bigfoot are big. These guys are a little bit bigger. Okay, and
how tall do you think he was?
I want to say he's like 9.5, maybe 10 feet tall.
So big boy.
It's a big guy, okay? I mean, think about this, okay? This is a bear skin he's wearing, okay? And I'm not saying it was a grizzly skin. What I'm saying is it was a black bear skin, okay? And I can wrap a black bear skin around myself twice, okay? So, and a normal warrior that takes a bear skin usually makes a cape out of it, okay?
Right.
And it will wrap around him more than enough to keep him warm, a big guy.
So he got like a one sleeve vest that he made out of the whole bear.
Yeah, it's just hanging there, I mean, and so you're realizing, oh my God, I'm looking at a bear skin, and oh my God, it's on this thing, and this thing it's not covering him. It's not coming down past his knees, and you're like, oh God. They're huge, okay? And when they look at you, there's a very intelligent look in that face. Malevolent. There's a good word for it.
Yeah. What color eyes did he have, by the way? I'm curious about that.
This one had the green eyes. They were like a green, brown. Yeah, and it was intimidating to me. It really was, because my alpha male in my group, Kiasa, has green eyes. So all I could think of was reverting back to as a child, when the males would get mad at me, they do this rumbling growl, and I was like, oh my God, the thing could eat me, and it terrified me. It really did. When I was talking about it, I don't think people realize that I get scared. I do. You know, even though I bump into these things and I interact with some of them, I still get scared. I'm very scared, okay? I have to face my fears. I make myself do it. And I was out there with the realization that I'm out here away from my friend, and I'm scared. You know, I'm scared, and this thing could come around the side of this and eat me at any point, and I would be vanished, gone. All you would find would be footprints, because it's nothing for him to snatch me up, you know, and or a man, you know, for that matter. Because people don't realize when you start talking about size, people's brains kind of do a shutdown. You know, they're like, "Oh, it's over 6 foot. I get it. No, you don't.
No, they don't. No.
Get it.
No.
This thing is massive. Okay, and even if you watched Harry and the Hendersons on the Disney Channel,
the guy in a furry suit, not even close to being as big.
Not even close. It's not even close. This thing was solid muscle. You know, there was no fat on him, but he was healthy, you know. But I'm saying as he walked, you could see each sinew, each muscle very, very defined. You know, I mean, this thing was enormous. And
my
to
God,
think about,
Kat, of all the impossibly bad times to run into a face eater in the middle of a winter when it's hungry season, oh my God.
I know, and here's dumb old me standing there going, let's look at it.
I don't get a chance to see these very often. Might as well enjoy it before it eats me.
Well, that's exactly what I thought. You know, I'm like, well, damn, if I'm going to die today, at least let me look at it, you know, because I had never really seen one that close. You know, I mean, I've seen the drawing.
Humans can't really be friendly with them. If you get that close, they'll try and eat you. So how do you get to be close to see one? I know one other person that's seen one, and they got to see one climbing a cliff through their field glasses. Initially thought it was a bear, and then watched it go up the cliff and went, that is no bear. What the hell am I looking at? And that's when they got interested in Bigfoot.
Because your brain is not your friend. You know, I've said that for years. It does everything it can to protect you, to keep you sane. You know,
right.
And I'm not going to lie. I'm sitting there. The wind has shifted. He's blowing towards me, this smell. Okay, I've got dead skin hanging on him. He's not clean, you know, and that makes sense to me because he's not going to be washing himself. I mean, in that type of environment, he needs to retain body heat. So whatever he has on, it's going to stay on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching him, and he is doing complete and total hunt mode. He's very meticulously, methodically going through everything. And then he started to walk away, and I ducked even further back around that boulder because I didn't want him looking back over his shoulder, you know, to see me.
No kidding.
And now here's where the stupid part comes in. Once he got a good ways further down the trail from me, I stepped out so that I could watch him walk away because I noticed something, and you're the first one on, you know, interviews that I've ever told this to. Everybody else who knows me knows it. I watched him walk, and this is what freaked me out and why I don't like him. I already knew he was in hunt mode. Okay, now remember I told you my father taught me how to walk. I wore moccasins until I was 14 years old. Okay, so I walk like I'm hunting. This thing walked the same way. It was very methodic and very meticulous about how it put its foot down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a stayama where they're just walking, you know, lumbering, whatever you want to call it, striding through the forest. You know, that's what my big guys do. No, this guy was watching his foot placement. Mm-hmm. So that tells me, you know, he's actively hunting, and he's making sure that he's not making noise, and maybe he's making sure that because I didn't go the way he went, so I don't know if maybe he had come up that way, and maybe he was walking back in his same footprints, you see? Mm-hmm. So that freaked me out as a human being. that freaked me out a lot because I was thinking, I can die here real simply. And now that I'm watching him hunt, I got to get out of here. I got to go back and find my friend. I don't care how much he's dug that damn thing out. I'm helping. We're leaving, because it terrified me that bad to realize that I was that close. And to know, because I already know about these things. I've been told and taught about them. But to know that they actively have that intelligence behind that, that was what scared me the most. It wasn't seeing it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't get, even people that are like really good hunters and stuff. These things spend all their time in the woods. And you're talking about the type 3s here, which are active predators. They're not necessarily taking advantage of everything in the environment. They want meat. So they're acting like a predator. They are hiding their presence. They're hiding their tracks. They're hiding anything that would indicate that they're around the area at all because they don't want to tip off the prey animals, and they definitely don't want to tip off the humans that there's something weird around there. So if anything, they're even more careful about hiding their tracks than the regular Bigfoot are.
Right. And like I said, it scared me enough that I didn't want to see them again. And unfortunately, I got called to right outside of Kentucky and had to go there and there again was another time that I had seen one. But this one to me was so strange in that it was down and about houses. And it took me a while to figure out, I'm not a predatory researcher. So I don't watch what animals do per se. I hunt, I track, I do that sort of thing. But I don't watch their behaviors that much. And what I found in them, and it blew my mind, was the fact that they came down to the edge of where the houses were before they were heading up into the forest. And they would come down and they would go through the big dumpsters, the big, I don't know what you call them, apartment dumpsters, I guess. That's the only thing I'm associated with.
Right.
And these houses had them 4 houses and 1 dumpster, 4 houses and 1 dumpster. And they were coming down and raiding the dumpsters. And then on their way back up, they would take an animal. And they were very smart. They would only take 1 animal each time they came. So it was like, well, maybe Fido wandered off, and as I was watching this, because I watched this experience, I experienced this for over 3 months. And while I was watching and learning about these guys, it amazed me how sneaky they were. They are just sneaky. To think that if they were to go hit a garbage can, for instance, then they would have to pick up that garbage can and put it all back in, put the lid on it, make sure that no one had ever noticed it. But to hit a dumpster, they could take whatever they wanted out of the dumpster, and then to take 1 animal every time they came. And in those 3 months, we had 4 dogs disappear, and that was it. It was so strange because I just can't imagine the intelligence behind that. So I had to revise everything that I had been taught about them and to realize they're very intelligent. They're very, very dangerous intelligence here. And people don't think about that when they're out in the woods. I mean, seriously, these stories that you hear about people, you get the Boy Scouts going to their camps, you get the Brownie girls going to their camps, you get people, hikers up along the trails. They're thinking, like I thought, the worst thing that you're ever going to have to deal with is a bear. No, there's something else out there that is way more predatory, way more dangerous, and very, very intelligent. Don't get me wrong, grizzly bears are very intelligent, but not like this. Not to the extent that this is. This is actively calculating, actively planning.
Yeah.
So
well,
that's
to put it in another perspective, most people are generally aware that gorillas are incredibly smart, but gorillas are herbivores. Imagine if the gorilla was a predator and had to think about how it was going to capture prey all the time and ambush it and hide its presence. How much more sneaky and smart would it seem?
Yeah, exactly. And you're talking not as big of a body build, but still, it's, you know, I mean, you look at a gorilla and your brain automatically associates, oh, that's a Bigfoot size. You know, it's bigger than that.
Nope.
No. And
now,
you know,
gorillas are little things. A big alpha male can punt a gorilla like a football. It's nothing that would challenge him.
No, and you tell people that, and they don't. It doesn't register in their brain. But I have a very good analogy for the size, because my alpha male is 9 foot tall, and when I had my house built, I have the front porch is in an awning, you know, an arch, and it's a 15-foot arch. And when he comes to the house, he places his hand on that arch and bends down to look in.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's big. And, you know, again, like most people just can't even relate to that. I had Rich Sewell on I was talking to here in one of the previous shows, and this part didn't get recorded, but or maybe it did. He was talking about how the guys over at Res Squatching had come up on this deserted cabin at night where, you know, usually people don't go. And there was this big old alpha standing right next to it with his hand on the edge of the roof. And the roof was, you know, like about 8, 9, 10 feet up there. So he was huge. And long gray hair. And he turned around and started walking off into the woods. And both the guys that were watching him said, you know, he had to have been around 12 feet tall. And both of us got this weird impression when he was going off in the woods, because where the headlights of the car were shining was kind of like right where his butt was. And so when he turned around and went into the woods, we were kind of like looking at his butt. And both of us went, man, that looks like it looks like an elephant's butt. It's so huge. You know, I mean, so picture how big an elephant's butt is, and then try and think of like something 12 feet tall that's got a butt like that big, you know, and that's what we're trying to describe here. And the thing that always blows my mind on these things, Kat, is that how huge some of them can be, and yet they're still so good at hiding from us stupid, pathetic humans, and we can't seem to find them.
I'll give you a good for instance on that stick Indians. Stick Indians are lone guys. They're loners. They are. I always, when I teach people about them, I say just refer to them as the district manager, because they don't live in family groups. They are by themselves. They watch over the whole district. That's their territory, and then they have the smaller, you know, territories inside of it. And stick Indians, they start out around 10, 12 feet tall. I've seen them as high as 17 feet would be that's not a guesstimate. That was measured. So 17 feet, We're talking big guys. They're very tall, very, I don't want to say skinny, but they're
No, I know exactly what
light.
you're saying. I had to try and explain this when I was doing the show on mountain giants for Sasquatch Chronicles, which is again one of the alternate names for mountain giants, timber giants. They're built more like Shaquille O'Neal, kind of. They're like a really a kind of a beefed out basketball player rather than like the Hulk.
Right.
So
exactly, that's a good analogy. That's perfect. Thank you, because that's exactly it. They're very tall, very almost like a lanky, but they've got the beef muscle part on it. But there's compare that to a normal Sasquatch. No, normal Sasquatch is a Hulk, like you said. He's got bumps and lumps on top of muscles and lumps. You know, I mean, they're just. I mean, it's totally intimidating. That's the only animal I've ever seen that has muscle on its kneecaps.
I know it's ridiculous. At first, when I saw, all I got to see him besides his face and his fingertips was his shins, and his shins were the same thickness as the huge ancient black spruce that he was hiding behind. I mean, my God, these things are just so massive.
And people don't even realize it. Yeah, they don't. There again, your brain shuts down, you know, and when you talk to people about Bigfoot, oh, yeah, I've seen them on TV. I've seen the Discovery Channel. Yeah, 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall. I got it. No, you really don't.
No, you don't. No, I know the people that say that, like, oh, there was this Bigfoot. One of my friends saw this Bigfoot that was like 7 foot. I think the best example of this is Michael Cook. Michael Cook down in Kentucky, he saw one roll down a hillside and go splash into the river and got back up and climbed back up the hillside. And the only reason he saw it is because he was playing hooky, skipping school, fishing on the riverbank on the opposite side of the river when it happened. It scared the living hell out of him. And he was telling us about it, and we're like, well, how big do you think it was? You know, this is up here in Montana. He was at the conference up here telling us about it. And he goes, well, shit had to be over 7 feet, probably close to 8 feet. We're like, oh, you just saw one of the little ones. Cute, man. You saw a little baby one. And he's like, baby one? How the hell big do they get up here in Montana?
They grow big.
Yeah, we were just razzing them on. But, you know, in general, it's kind of interesting that it does seem that the same sort of correlation with regular animals holds true with them. The further north you go, the bigger they tend to get because they want that, you know, extra mass in comparison to the surface area of their body. It tends to hold in heat better so they can deal with it better.
Right. You know, and so I agree totally with that because further north you go, they do get bigger. And case in point, I grew up in Oregon and I grew up in Louisiana, you know, 6 months here, 6 months there. And the big guys down in Louisiana in the swamps down there, no, they're nothing compared to the Stema in Oregon. Nothing. You know, the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, I look at them and it's just like you just said, oh, you guys are little. You know,
yeah. Oh,
little.
you saw a little baby one. It was only 8 feet tall.
Oh, yeah, you know.
We were just good-natured razzing them, but, you know, like you're saying, there really is something behind that. You know, it does seem to be that the further north you go, the bigger they get. And a lot of the reports that we get of the mountain giant type ones, or what you're calling stick Indians, come from Alaska. No surprise there. Plenty of food, plenty of land. A lot of the locals even know where they live and won't go there because they're smart. Lake Iliamna up there on the opposite side of the mountain range that borders it on one side is supposed to be a valley that they live in. And the locals absolutely refuse to go there. They're well aware that they live there. They just say, you know, we don't go there and we don't want you going there because if you make them angry, they're going to come mess with us. So don't go there.
And to me, that's fascinating because that tells you there's something there intelligence-wise because they're going to come mess with them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So see, it's something more than an ape. And I have argued that point with people till I can't argue with
till the cows come home and then afterwards, yeah. You know, one of the things that I've been doing my research on these guys and found that there are reports of them being in other parts of the world, and specifically I was talking to a researcher over in Scandinavia who's doing research on Bigfoot over there, and yes, there are Bigfoot there. But they're also doing research on, you know, old historical archives and stuff and books in the Old Norse language, trying to get in contact with the Sami, the native people that live up in northern Norway, Sweden, and western Finland, and get some of their legends. And yeah, they have, you know, a legend about basically Bigfoot. They call them forest people. But if you look at some of this other stuff, they're dealing with three types of giant cryptids over there. They got the Bigfoot, they got their frost giants, which are like the red-haired giants that we have over here in North America, in fact, almost identical. And then they've got a third thing that they call a troll. Well, if you go back far enough and you start looking at the actual descriptions of these trolls, and a lot of them include the tusks that the mountain giants seem to have, it starts looking like they're talking about friggin' mountain giants. The timber giants is what they were calling trolls. Same height, same body shape, same facial description. You go back far enough and get rid of all the modern art stuff that's been done on them, or even the mythological art stuff, and just deal exclusively with, you know, reports. You know, Angmar was up here in 580 and said he saw one and it looked like this sort of thing. It just seems like they're talking about the same exact critter, and maybe what the Norse were referring to as trolls is what you're calling a stick Indian.
Yeah, could very well be. You know, and there again, I find it fascinating too, because you just brought up something that I've done a lot of research on in my own clan. I've found, and I don't know about this, you can tell me yay or nay, my reports on my group have shown that if it's red, if they have red hair, they're more aggressive. They're more outspoken. That's a good one for one of the ones. I'm not sure how that relates in. There again, it's got to do with bloodlines. I'm sure of it, you know, because the red is predominant, and when I have a red-haired one brought into the clan or that is born in it. For some reason, they are a better hunter. They're more aggressive, more active, is more vocal. They have less fear. They have a bravery about them that the other ones don't have. And I've found it really interesting. It fascinates me because it's got to do. I'm 50-50 on it here. With my own research, I've come to the conclusion that red is a recessive. It's either a recessive or it's because of the bloodline that it is associated with, is affiliated with. And I think that it is to do with that. It makes them a better hunter, makes them more aggressive, makes them more outspoken, just a little bit more active than the normal
one theory that I've been kicking around about these guys, and you're sort of like touching on the borders of it right here, is what if the trolls or the stick Indians, mountain giants, whatever you want to call them, what if they are not a static species? What if they're actually hybrids? What if at some point a gigantic adult male Bigfoot managed to get himself a younger female giant girlfriend and made babies?
Yeah. See, and I think you're right, because one of mine was brought in, okay, as a second female to my alpha male, and I called her Wild Woman. Okay, I never give.
Oh, I remember hearing about Wild Woman. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I never gave any of my guys names like this. Okay, This woman was out of control. I mean, she would literally, my children had to take a bus, okay? I had to drive 5 miles down the canyon to get them to the bus stop every morning, okay? There is an outcropping of rock, okay, that is there that when they made the road, they blasted through the rock. She had no fear. She didn't care, okay? I have neighbors, I mean, they're not right on top of me, but I do have neighbors. And she had no fear. She was like, screw you. I'm going to stand up here and let the world see me every morning as you're driving down the canyon, because people down at the bottom could see up onto that rock.
Oh, my
and they
God.
could see. She had no fear. She was like, screw you. I'm up here. What are you going to do about it? Come get me.
Wow. Talk about breaking rules. I bet the rest of the troop wasn't very friggin' happy about that behavior.
No, she got the boot eventually, but the point is that she was out of, there's that bravery, that wildness about her, that the other ones never have. And they're just brown, gray, black, and then there's the red, and first came her, and then, she's second. Before that, growing up as a child, I've explained to people the males do this really funny little thing. It's amusing to me because I grew up with it. They wrestle, and it's like they pick each other up and they throw each other down, and then it's like, yay, yeah, yay, I won. I flipped you, I won. I'm the man. And we had a red one in the group as a child, and his name was Stinky. I called him Stinky. There again, there's the name. I never understood why I named him different than the others, other than the fact that he was stinky, he was mean, he was grouchy, aggressive, and I was never left alone with him. They would never allow me to be near him alone, ever.
Wow. That's telling right there.
Isn't that? And so it's just like, then along here comes Wild Woman 40 years later, and I'm watching her, and she's got the same characteristics. She's very violent, very vocal, very just out there, and so I'm wondering if, I think you're right. I think that it's got to do with the troll, whatever you want to call it, frost giant, whatever you want to call it. It's that red. That red is thrown in there. And then here, I'm just, because I'm one of those people that's very strange, it makes you start wondering, about the red-haired giants that you've heard
Right.
about all over the world that were aggressive and mean,
Yep.
you know. So
And again, the other thing, not only aggressive and mean, but the way the Norse described their hair, it wasn't like orange red like humans with red hair. It was blood red. It was
blood
red. And
right.
they usually had like blue or green eyes, or blue seemed to be the predominant one. And then you get the descriptions of the giants here in North America. Well, they had red hair and blue eyes.
Yes.
Kind of a coincidence there. And then, the other thing is that they had those same sort of attributes where they were just violent, out of control, ate humans. There was like almost no dealing with them. There's only one story I heard of where there was a tribe that had actually made a deal with one of these things to not get attacked by it, and they were feeding him buffalo. Every so often they'd bring him a couple buffalo, and so he wouldn't screw with the tribe. And white man showed up and started shooting all the buffalo, and they went up and talked to him and went, hey man, we're out of food here. Well, there's no buffalo, and but we can like rustle you a couple of cows. The white man's cattle is pretty yummy. We've ate some of them. And apparently the troll just went, nah, I'm sick of this. Too many humans around here now anyway. I'm just going to move further out in the woods, and you guys can have this territory. See you later. And that was the last day I ever saw them. But other than that, it's always just like these things are vicious, violent, aggressive, eat humans, just really nasty, vicious temperament. And they've got that red hair. And then you look at a lot of the reports that you get of Bigfoot encounters and, whatever type of Bigfoot it may have been, it seems like a lot of the reports where they're really getting chased, the behavior is very aggressive. A lot of it seems to be the ones with this like orange, brown orange, reddish type hair.
Thank you. See, I'm telling you, I've been saying this for years. And the other thing that I've noticed about them is predominantly my stema that I interact with all have double rows of teeth. Okay, they all do in one form or another. Some of them, they're not formed all the way. Some there are, but they're not good dental. They don't look like they should. Okay, if they're going to be perfect teeth, and usually I would expect the perfect teeth to be a characteristic that carried back through. Okay. Wild woman, she had 2 sets of teeth. I had pictures up on my website years ago that got hacked. And I got the picture of her full on roaring at me with her mouth, and you could see the double rows of teeth in those. And they were perfect double rows of teeth. Perfect.
Wow.
So that is just something that I've always,
Well, you know who else has got the attribution of supposedly having double rows of teeth?
Nephilim.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, they're supposed to have 6 digits too. So,
yeah,
and that's been one of my pet theories for a while, that the standard Bigfoot that we think of may be in some way related to them. May not, I'm not saying they're directly that they're Nephilim or something, but they may be in some way related to them if you accept the notion that at some point in the history of the past that we had a lot higher tech level. It may have been the giants that actually had that tech level. They may have had tech equivalent to what we've got right now, in which case they could have created these things to just, we need a guard dog for the yard. Let's make a Wendigo. We need somebody to go dig some gold out of the ground. Let's make type 1s. We just don't know. All this is guesswork.
Yeah, it's all just passed down, and I mean, don't get me wrong, there are things that are kept hidden in different cultures, and I'm going to be talking about that, by the way, on my channel, so you know. Don't get a big shock out of it. I'm going to do a little bit of talking about that one. But there are things that we've lost information on, and I think that these guys, there's an integral part there, that's missing. And I think that somewhere somebody played with it, with experimented, and I do talk about the legend about how dogmen type 3s, whatever you want to call them, were made, because that there again, if you listen to it as an archaeologist and you understand what you're looking for, is gene manipulation.
Right.
It's total gene manipulation and gene splicing. So it's it's fascinating to me that you have the same theory there that I do, but yours is more with the trolls and what went on that way. So
yeah. The reason that I got part of this theory, dear, is because I actually have talked to people that purport to be government insiders, and were involved with the government side of the whole Bigfoot thing. And their claim is that if you got some DNA, especially from ones other than type 1s, and looked at it, you would know for a fact immediately that it was not a natural life form, that it was synthetically made, because it's got pieces of other DNA codes from other animals spliced into it.
Really, that's interesting. That makes sense. But then again, I mean, if you do religious study, what were the angels doing? The fallen angels, they were doing the same thing. They were experimenting and doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you go back and you look at, especially at the apocryphal books, where a lot of them were excluded from the Bible because it was just like, well, there's too much stuff about the olden days that we don't really need. It's not important in the narrative of Jesus and how he came into being. That could be why they excluded it. It could also be because the Vatican is running an agenda and is trying to cover up a bunch of information. Make your own decision. But if you look at like the Book of Jubilees, Jasher, Book of Ogius, the Book of Og 1 and 2, some of this stuff, and you start comparing, it's all got like little pieces of this story in it. And if you read all of them, you can put the story together. Right. And not only were the Nephilim pretty much running the earth and using humans as slaves and or food items, but they were creating all kinds of other things, because, in the Bible, it says that, well, the earth had become corrupt and wicked and God decided to destroy it. But if you read these other books, it explains how they made the world corrupt and wicked. And what it was is that, everybody goes, well, the angels came down and they mated with human females, and that's how they produced these giants. Well, did they? Because it also said that they were doing their vile, wicked things with reptiles and birds and fish and mammals and plants and trees and vegetables and fruit. And so they're running around like physically raping everything in sight and somehow producing hybrids with it, or they're using DNA tinkering to make it. Which sounds more reasonable to you? And if they're using DNA tinkering to make it, that means they can be making all sorts of interesting life forms. Oh, like dinosaurs, for example. A T-Rex that's 50 feet long, 25, 30 feet high is pretty terrifying to us. But if you're a 35-foot-tall giant, that's like having a guard dog. Oh, let's make a couple of them. I'll keep them around my castle to keep those pesky humans away. So you start looking at it in this light, it makes the whole history of the earth look really different than the way it's being presented to us, looking through it from that viewpoint.
Right. And I agree with that 100%, because that's the same exact way. Because here's a good one. As a child, I was brought up Catholic until I was 13 years old. Okay? So every summer I went and spent at the grotto with the nuns. I stayed there with them every summer. Okay? So I take the book.
And how much fun did you have during your summers? None.
None.
Sorry.
None.
Couldn't resist. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and me being the child that I was, I'd already done a presentation on Bigfoot for my 4-H club. They didn't know. My sisters that were taking care of me there, they knew. Okay, the priest there that was alongside of them, worked with them, he knew as well about my monster, quote unquote. So
did any of them believe that you actually were seeing monsters, or did they just think you were like, wee, wee, wee?
Oh no, like I said, I had the 4-H example. Talking about that. Okay. Yeah, I'd done basically a forensic example here. My presentation for them, and I even had 4 different types of hair from 4 different females. Show them.
Losing you again.
I don't know what's going on with this phone. I'm just sitting in the same position.
Are you on a cell phone? Maybe the battery's getting low.
Well, let me look. No, my battery charge is fully charged.
Huh.
Okay, I bet you it's the weather. It's the government. Yeah. Don't talk about Bigfoot, damn it.
Yeah. Well, I was doing that show on the Giants with Dave, and I got to the second part of we were recording into the second hour, and all of a sudden my phone just died. And I tried to call back, and I couldn't, and I looked at the phone, and it said no signal. I'm like, no signal. I'm sitting in my house where I always talk on the phone. So I went upstairs and I borrowed my roommate's phone, and I got on for like another 10 minutes and that was it. And then his phone went dead, and he had just charged it.
Oh, my word.
So yeah, what are the odds against that? Pretty gigantic. It looks suspicious to me. So anyway.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know,
things like that. I don't know, because you remember Keel wrote about that. You know, when he was dealing with the Mothman. You know, he was speaking about the strange, what do you call those? Ultra-terrestrials. Do you know about those?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to wonder.
You know, my theory as far as the ultra-terrestrial thing goes, you know, they talk about the extraterrestrials, the aliens from another planet, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you know, they keep telling us they're from another place, and then when we can actually verify it, they change their story. And I don't think that they're from some other star or planet. I think they're from another dimension. They're just coming from another. They're from right here in another dimension, and they're just dimensional traveling to get here and lying their asses off. That's my personal guess.
That's my opinion as well. So I wonder at times, like when I'm dealing with the Bigfoot beings, here if they're not. This is crazy. This is something that I haven't ever told anybody except for when I was a little kid. I used to tell my dad all the time. I said, "What if they have babysitters? What if they have keepers?" You know, and we don't know about it, because I used to wonder, because there were times when they would do things and then they would act like they were going to get in trouble for doing it. Who's going to discipline them, for God's sake?
Yeah, exactly. What can be scaring them that they're going to get in trouble? Well, that's kind of confusing.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and to this day they still do it. You know, when they do something that they're not supposed to do, they always act weird, you know, and I'm like, yeah, what am I going to do there? Am I going to come out with my big staff that I use for ceremonies and whack you upside the head? I don't think so.
Yeah, you'll reach up and swing it as hard as you can and hit them in the knees, and they'll go, "What's that?"
Yeah, what's that?
It's Cat hitting me with a stick. I guess I did something wrong.
You know, and there's exactly, you know, and I mean, you're laughing like crazy, but here's the funny part, and it's not funny. It is sad and pathetic on my part. Growing up with them, I'm going to say that I do have a temper, and when I've been pushed or shoved to the point where I can't take it anymore, I have fought back. Okay, so I look like something out of, I don't know, the world's stupidest cartoon with this you know. I'm attacking this person, you know, this big thing, and they're just sitting here. I've been smacked, shoved off, you know. And
I'm just kind of like picturing a leprechaun punching Conan the Barbarian in the shins or something.
That's what it's like, you know. And the worst part of it came at 35 years of age when I did flip out again on them. I mean, I'm not saying it's been a lot, but it's gone there. And to have them literally do to me like they did as a child, pick me up by my head and turn me around and go, "Get the hell out of here," you know, shove me away. That was not a good experience, you know.
It's a real stark reminder, though, that no matter how big you get, you're still way outmatched by these guys.
I've got big boys, okay? My sons are over 6'3", 6'4". I've got one that's 6'7". Okay, they look tiny compared to these guys. Okay, they're. I'm serious as a heart attack. People don't get the idea of the size until you are up against them. A really good example is I had a friend who came to visit me. She was walking from her house to my house, okay, in the wintertime, thinking, you know, there's nothing here. You know, it's rainy. It's a little bit rainy and windy, but I'm going to get to Cat's house. No big deal. So she's walking, and she stops because sitting about, I don't know, 50 yards, she would be a pretty good guess from what she was showing me. In front of her is what she called a hill with hair. I said, what? And she says, yeah. She says, I didn't think anything of it until I got to that hill, she said. And then I realized what was wrong with the hill. The wind was blowing, and you could see the hair moving. She said, and then I realized, hey, that's not a hill. And I got to go to Cat's, and I'm not going to Cat's anymore. So she turned around and ran. Okay, when she got home, she called me. She said, I was coming to visit you, but I'm not coming to visit you anymore. She said, if I come, I'm driving. And I said, why? Then she started telling me about the hill with hair. I said, what color was the hair? oh, it was kind of like a blondie brown. I said, oh, that was tall woman. She was out there. You know, the tall woman is small. Okay.
And she's little, yeah. God.
You know, so it's just that sort of size. People don't get it until you actually are face to face with it. Then you're like, oh my God. You know, I mean, it's terrifying. It really is, because you learn to adapt to it if you're going to be out with and about with them. This person can reach over with their hand and literally crush me like a washcloth, like you wring out a washcloth with one hand. Okay? This is to know this and to be around them is something completely different, you know?
Yeah.
And so to see that and then wonder about a stick Indian, I've only seen a stick Indian, I count time on my hands, both hands, okay? Both times I didn't want to get anywhere near it because to me it looked as tall as a freaking tree, you know? And like I said, I grew up in Oregon. I'm around cedar trees.